Okay, go for it.
All right, so as I've said before, knowledge of making our models is crucial. This model, for instance, was really difficult to make, and that's because we've got these orthodontic bands, which causes complexity in cutting the model. So in order to arch cut a model, usually we just put the arch cut down and then we trim the model. But what happens if we have orthodontic brackets with 100,000 different crevices and angles and so on? You would have to then sculpt it smooth around these brackets before you put the arch cut tool down. So this is exactly what I have done. If you look carefully here, the model has been smoothed before we put the arch cut down. So the user struggled to make a model in this specific case, and this is what I've guided him to do. The other thing about this model is that the the model, it was completely embedded. Now, we want to place an implant sleeve over here. So if the implant sleeve is embedded in the model, how are we going to make a guide? We cannot make a guide. So in this instance, I've taken the lasso cut, angled it at this angle, and I've removed a whole section of the model, and then I've merely smoothed it. So these are just few pointers to know what to do. Okay, before you even make a guide, you need some good models. Then the user hollowed them and had honeycomb. Now, we can't do that because if we're putting this into the DICOM to edit, you'll see all these hexagons all over the bone. And we can't do this. So we've specified in our videos, please, these models have to be solid. If you like to make them hollow at the end of it, for printing, that's fine. But for implant planning, it needs to be solid. Okay. So then we are, once we've got the models, we are basically ready to start our journey. Now in 3D Slicer, we've got our CBT CT scan, and the first thing we need to do is we need to understand that the coordinate system in the DICOM and the coordinate system of our models is incorrect. We need to align these to the DICOM. And to further complexity, we've got two models. And initially what I did, I put them together, I joined them together, and then I aligned the upper to the scan, only to find out that the lower occlusion in Blender, so the way it has been scanned in the mouth, is not the same as the DICOM, because the patient's jaw is in a different relationship. This means we have to align models twice according to the DICOM. And this is very, very critical to make sure that the DICOM and the models are exact. Wolf, have you got any questions about this that you can think of?
No, so would you make two segmentation models or just one in 3D Slicer? You just
Um,
you carry
what are you saying?
the segmentation model that you make in
No,
3D
just
Slicer.
one.
Just one.
You just make one segmentation. Can you turn your mic up a bit, Wolf?
Yes, just a minute.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So in order to move this to the DICOM, we call it an ICP model, which is a miniature model. And I'm going to open up 3D Slicer, and in the 3D Slicer, we've got this little icon here. This is a segment editor. And in this editor, we've got a specific menu. The first thing we want to do is we want to add a segment. And this allows us now, when we click on threshold, we can move a slider back and forward. Now we need to make a compromise between too much noise, which is all the green stuff you see here, and too little, because too little means a shrunken model. So we need to define the perimeter of this segmentation. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to click on this little crosshair, which gives me a crosshair on the screen. And by using the Shift key, I can then move in one slice and everything else moves accordingly. So I'm going to then move the slider and have a look at this specific tooth on the right-hand side. So, and then I'm going to choose a threshold which is not too little and not too much. So I'm looking at the boundary of the actual tooth. Okay, so this looks roundabout okay for me, and then you need to apply it. If you don't apply it, then nothing happens. We need the segment applied. So I'm going to apply this. Now this has essentially applied my entire skull. So if I click on Show 3D, it takes it takes a while to calculate depending how dense your CT scan is. We don't want to work with the entire thing in Blender. We only need a small miniature model to do our alignment. So let's do that. We're going to go to the scissors and we're going to then make sure we click on erase outside because the default is erase inside. So just change it to erase outside and then draw a line, something like that. And then let go of your mouse and that'll cut it out. And this is our little model which we need. And we're going to then, I'll just click none to get rid of the scissors. We're going to export this into Blender. Now, you guys may think we've got a Blender slicer link. And yes, we can link it, but the CT scan models are very dense, and dense models will clog up the system. So we're working on a refreshing procedure, and this is why we want to be able to export. So we're going to go to the segmentation. And by the way, we're recording this so you can look at this later. And we're going to go export to files, choose your folder, and then make sure everything else is deselected. Do not change the scale, and you have to make sure that the RAS, the coordinate system, has been applied. Now, dentistry still uses the RAS. 3D Slicer by default uses the other coordinate system, LPS. So just bear this in mind, because if you don't do this, your models are other way around, and then you're going to do ICP alignment, and then you'll find that, oh, it's wrong way around. You've done all of this work for nothing. So make sure this is correct, and then click on export. Okay. Now, we're toggling back and forward. If you've got two screens or a big screen, perfect. If you work on a little laptop, can be very tricky. So I'm going to go File, Import, STL file, and I'm going to look for where I've exported it, which is over there, and I'm going to import the STL file. Okay, and we can see, wow, okay, the coordinate system is very different. Okay, now theoretically, if we align the models to this, we've got a perfect match in to the DICOM. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to select both of these models, RZ, and get familiar with the Blender shortcuts, because this is very crucial. RZ means rotate on the Z axis, G to grab, G to grab. And I'm just going to position them sort of underneath, because I want to be able to get the correct landmarks going. And like I've said to you before, the upper has to be aligned and the lower has to be aligned. It's very critical that you don't think you can align both, because the occlusion could be completely out. Okay, so I'll just minimize this zoom window a little bit. Okay, Then we're going to go to the ICP alignment, and I'm going to be choosing the model, which is going to be the moving model, and I'm going to choose this as my destination, and then I'm going to color the moving, and I'm going to look for a few landmarks. Now, we've got a lot of scatter in the top, in the DICOM file, so we need to find a few places which are sort of visible, and sometimes there aren't many visible. So I'm going to just paint on a few, the centrals and the canines. And I'm going to have a look in the molar region. So when you're painting these, think of the X, Y, and Z. If you can lock points X, Y, and Z, then you'll probably get quite a close match. So this one would be in the Y direction, this would be X direction, this one would be the Z direction. Okay, and then I'll look for the other molar. Now, unfortunately, there's not much to be seen over there. Maybe I can put a dab across there, apply that, and then this, we're going to color destination, and we're going to do the same thing. Little dab there. Make sure that you don't paint anything else but what you have selected. And then a splotch over here, like that. And we're going to apply this. Okay, and then we're going to use the G key and the R key to get them close to each other. Now, we're working on a new ICP tool, which is going to be released soon, where you just click as many points as you like, not in a specific order, and it'll do the initial alignment, it'll snap it, and then you can still do the painting. So with that, having done that, I can set the iterations. That means how many times the calculations take place. And then we're going to start, stop, select both, and perform the ICP. And this is where the magic happens. And once this is done, we're going to then confirm this. So we've got a very good alignment over there, and we would do the same for the lower. But for this video, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to just open my other file. So Wolf, if you've got any questions.
No. So you just repeat the whole process. Are there any questions?
Here we've got...
Just a minute while we're here. We could just take a quick stop for asking questions about segmentation and alignment. No, Michael, you can have a drink.
Yeah. No questions?
No.
Okay. So we've done the first step. The next step, we need to put teeth in the gap so that we can see where the implants are going to come out. And one word of advice is get rid of everything that you don't need in Blender anymore, because I've seen a few users carry on and they've got this dense ICP model in the scene. As what I've said to you before, it clogs up the procedure. So when we do implant planning, the only thing that gets ported across are the implant components and nothing else. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to X and delete my ICP model because we finish it, we don't need it anymore. And the other thing that I'd like to do is I want to lock these models. So in the model designer, I'll just click on lock, and this one lock as well, so that they don't accidentally move and then everything is for nothing. Okay, we're going to go to the guide module, and I'm going to be looking for I'm going to close up all these menus, because if you've got too many expanded, very difficult to work. So we're going to click on setting the teeth, and we're going to import hollow teeth. And there's a reason for it being hollow, because we want to be able to connect it to the implant abutment later on. So this is why we got hollow. So I'm prompted at the bottom, I need to choose and select some teeth. So I'm going to click choose teeth, and I'm going to just paint across, and then we need this tooth, and then we're looking for another tooth over here. I think it's this one over there. And delete unwanted teeth. That gets rid of everything else. Okay. And then from there on, we're going to place these teeth. So I'm going to hide. Get to know your Blender shortcuts. H for hide. And your tilde key, very important. So we're going to view this from the top. And I'm going to grab this one and this one. And then using the G key and the R to rotate and put them into position. View it from the top. S to scale, G to grab, R to rotate. So position them where you think they should be. And you can check them in occlusion and whatever with your top model. And then we're going to do exactly the same thing for the top model. So we'll take this one and put it in. But to shortcut this, I'll just open up my other file. So I'm cheating a bit here, just to speed up things up a bit. All right, so here we've set the teeth. So this is our next step done, and we want to then start the implant planning. So Wolf, can you think of anything that comes to mind so far? So I can just quickly have a rest.
No, it's just, well, with the implant planning, the question would be, do we have implant components, or do we just use virtual components for planning?
Yeah, we've got two generic implants. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the other question is, can we swap to our own implant system? Those two questions, basically.
Yeah. And what
Yeah.
do you?
So if we've got implants, yeah, we do have implants. I'm answering my own question. So we've got the Medentika implant range. You can use those. And to do that, you'll need the components module. So you can just append that into the 3D work area. And then Michael will show you how to swap those with the virtual implants that we use. If you've got your own implants, you can use those too. So Michael, you'll show later how that's done.
Yeah. So we're going to go through to 3D Slicer. As I've said, what we don't need, get rid of. We don't need the segmentation model anymore. So whatever we don't need, we take away, because when we're working with 6 implants or whatever, or even more, you could have a list of 50 objects on the scene, and that can be daunting, and it can also be very confusing. So as we go along, we're cleaning up as we going along all the time. So I'm going to remove this. Okay. If you wanted to save it somewhere for future reference, export it from Blender and save it. But we already have that saved because we've exported it as a segmentation model. So if you need it again, you can use it. All right, so we're going to go and use the second add-on, which is the Slicer Pano. And this puts the slices a little bit differently in our scene. And we want to then select our specific one that we are working on. So I think it's this one. Okay, yeah, it's this one. We're going to be drawing, because we've got an upper and a lower, we need to have 2 curves. You want the slices to move according to the upper curve and the lower curve. So how do we do this? The first thing, let's do the lower one first. I mean, the order is up to you how you're going to do it. So I'm going to choose my slice and my lower model, and I'm then we can go straight to making curves, or we can choose. We can go on the input curve, create new markups curve. And then I'm going to, up here, there's a little drop down box, and make sure you click on open curve, not closed curve, open curve. And then we're going to left click and draw this curve along. And then right click to get out of that. Okay. And now we are able to use that curve. So as soon as I go with the transverse, and okay, I need to select this curve, and then it follows that path. Okay. So here in this one, we've got different, we can set this differently, how we want to view this. If you want a black or white background or whatever. So there's a lot of things that you can do in 3D Slicer. So having said this, we want to then mark the curve, the nerve, but we don't have anything else on the scene. So this may be a good time to bring in my models. To do this, we're going to go to the other add-on that we've got, the Slicer link. And in Blender, we're going to then start the server, and we're going to start on the other side as well. Now, before I want to do this, I want to say that we want to see through these models. We want to be able to analyze what is going on in the models. So I'm going to be clicking on the specific model, and I can then change the alpha value. So I'll put that to 0.7. And the same with this, I can delete the color and I can add another one if I want. And we're going to then change that alpha value to 0.7 as well, or 0.5 or whatever. These teeth, same thing. Okay, so we've got a better view of what's going on. I'm going to start the server, and then I'm going to start this on the other side as well. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything on my scene. And because these models are quite big, they're dense, we're only going to transfer this across one time only, because we're working on this refreshing system. So we're going to, let's close everything else. So in the implant planning, we're going to then look for the button one-off transfer. Hit that, and then this will come up, which means that it's been placed in a layer and then it's disabled. Now we can't click on this anymore, because in the outliner, you'll notice that there's a little arrow here, like the same arrow here. It's not solid, it's just a line, which means you can't select it. And this stops it from going back into 3D Slicer. So this is important. If you've got other models that you only want to transfer once, do this, and then it won't clog up the system. Okay, so we're just waiting so that it comes across, and bingo, we've got a good match here. Now, the first thing we need to do is inspect if in fact the ICP has done its job. And if the model is not aligned correctly, which means that when you placing your implant and then the guide, it's going to be out. Okay, so this is very, very important, just to move through the slices and then just see whether you've got a good alignment, which we have. Okay, now we are able to do the implant work on this. However, the lower model, we need to see the nerve as well. All right, so how do we do this? I'm going to go to the panel again, and we're going to move this this slice over across to where the tooth is. So here. Now the mouse movements are a little bit different to Blender. This is something you're going to have to learn and adjust to. So it's a little bit tricky at first. Okay. So we want to be able to see this nerve. So I've got it placed round about where it should be, and we're going to then take the tangential and move this round to about 90 degrees perpendicular. I'll just bring it to about somewhere 90 degrees. Then what we're going to do is we're going to then also move the actual angle. So let me try and zoom in properly there. So basically I want to get this slice parallel to the longitudinal axis of the bone. So we're going to be moving this like that, more or less. And then I'm scrolling on the green slice and I can see the exit, but yet it's not that clear. So I'm going to be moving this slider maybe a little bit different. Round about there, moving through, and then just so that you'll be able to see it. There we go. There. So we've got it there. Okay. This takes a little bit of practice to understand how this works. Segmentation, and we're going to add a segment. We're going to go to the tube, draw tube, and I'm going to set to 1.5. Then I'm going to be selecting a fiducial placement point. So let's see where it comes out there. So I'm going to click on this and then place it, left click, and move my mouse and find it. Here we go. Place it again, and then just draw this and then right click to get out of it. Then I'm going to apply this and you'll see that it automatically turns into a color. Now this is our segment. We can export it to Blender, but we don't have to because we've got the visual over here. Okay, but if I do decide to export it into Blender, we can use the link. It's a very small object. So the way we do this is we have to make this into a model. And by clicking on segment, we click on export models. So it doesn't export it into a different filing system on your computer. It exports it into this model maker. So if I click on export, actually what I'll do is I'll name it nerve. Okay. And then we're going to click on export. Then in the model, on the model maker, we've got it called nerve over here. So if I want to, so again, you don't have to do this, but if you want to have it in Blender for future reference or something, we will then go to our link and we're going to add model and we're going to then look for our nerve. And then this will then port it across into Blender. Okay, so we've got it over here. Okay, so this is how we do the nerve. So okay, I'll just have a quick break. Are there any questions? Okay. Hello?
No, yeah, I can hear you. No, there's no questions coming in from the chat. So
Okay, I
you're all
thought I
good.
had.
Can you color the
I'm on
nerve?
my own.
I suppose you can.
Yeah, you can. It's quite easy. You just select it and then you look for one of the color box and then we can.
So the nerve,
color.
is that going to port across with the implants as in the refreshing system?
It can do. But again, we can just do a one-off transfer to stop it from doing that in the future. Okay. So that'll that will bring it into the 3D
Would you
slicer
lock
there.
so the nerve is locked? You can't select it or move it or anything by accident.
You can't select anything on the screen, and this is exactly what we want, because when we're planning with the implants, we need this to be, everything here is deselected except for the implants which we are porting across.
Good.
Okay,
So
so
does that complete the DICOM viewer bit? Are we from here on? Oh no, of course we're going into the implant planning first now. So we're using
yeah,
Blender.
yeah. Implant planning is two stage. We first put them into Blender for an initial placement, and then we fine tune in the DICOM editor. So let's do this. I'm going to click
I've just
on,
got a quick question. Can you port across both the left-hand side nerve and the right-hand side nerve in one go? Or do you have to do
no,
it as separate segments?
um, when you're drawing the curve, it's good just to make a new, sorry, not a curve, a tube. So in here, we can just draw a new tube. We'll go to the segment editor. We're going to add another one, and then we're going to click on draw tube, and then that'll be a separate object. But you can port them through. While you're porting them, the one, you can port the other one through as well. Okay. All right, so let us import a tapered implant. Okay, now this is a generic implant. I'm going to view this from the top. Okay, so oh, I pressed something wrong. So top, and then I'm going to swivel this into position G and the R key. And I want to make sure that the notch is on the buccal side. So R is it, move it to the buccal side and up. Now there's quite a few reasons for that.
Can you
And
explain
that's
what the
because,
notch is used for?
yeah, so the notches, if you've got an implant with a hexagon or whatever, where you choose a certain landmark in the implant, because all of the angles that you purchase move away from a specific landmark of the implant. So this notch is that landmark. So if you've got a replace select or something with three prongs on the inside of the implant, you choose that landmark where the actual angle moves away from it. So it's very important. Okay, so first one, and then I can duplicate this implant. So when I click on duplicate, it'll make another one, and it'll just move it a bit on the side. Initially I had duplicate one on top of the other, but users can't see it, so that becomes a little bit tricky. I'll just, okay, so then from the top view, I can then put it into position and R key. And then we'll duplicate it one more time, duplicate, and this time I'm going to rotate it by 180 degrees. I'll select this, and we're going to just view it this time from the bottom using the G key and the R key to rotate it into position. Okay, so this is the initial placement. I've got it. No, I've got it. What am I doing here? Yeah, I've got to move it down. Yeah. So that's ideal. But you'll see in a few minutes how unideal this position is.
So
Okay,
you just do a
there
rough
we go.
placement first using the teeth and the model and things like that.
Yeah.
And then
So
you're going
if
to,
you, at
yeah.
this stage, if you want to change it to well, you'd probably look at it in the DICOM viewer first, and then if you wanted to change it to a cylindrical, for example, you just select on cylindrical and it'll change. or conical. If you want to import your own implants, you can. I don't have my component module here, but we've explained that in a video of how to do this. Okay. So in my diagram editor, you'll see all of these components that should be there. So as I'm moving through, we should see these implants, which I don't think they are there, funny enough. Okay, I just need a quick rest, and then we'll continue. Wolfgang, if you can just, if there's any questions so far, that would
No,
be
it was
good.
just regarding the nerve. That was a good question. Yeah, no,
Okay, so I'm
so
going to click on refresh all in Slicer. Okay, and see what happened. Okay, here we
you've
go.
got
So
them
we've got
there.
them all there. So if there's anything ever where it doesn't come through, just click on refresh all in Slicer, and that'll select all and put it into 3D Slicer. Now we're going to move to the top one, and this is quite a tricky one. So we're going to look at the top one. So I'll scroll through. Here's the top one. Shift on your keyboard and move the mouse. Okay, this will allow us then to see what's going on, and with the right mouse click we can zoom in and we can zoom out. Here we'll just have a look.
So working with two monitors is probably an ideal scenario because you've got more freeway space too.
Exactly, yeah. Now we're working on the lower curve, and like I've said to you beforehand, we'd like to have an upper curve. So we need to mark it so that our slices can go according to the top one. So I'm gonna go to the panel again, and we're going to select the we're gonna in this curve we're going to click create new markups curve, and then click on this one, and then we'll make another drawing like that, and then from there we're going to select it and update it. Now as soon as I move this specific one, it will move according to that curve.
So can you have
And
as
I will
many
move
curves
this.
as you like, Michael?
Yes,
Mm.
yeah. So I'll move it across to where the tooth is. I'm actually watching that on this specific, and holding down the shift key, I'll be able to see there. And I'll just open this a bit, and wow. So you can see the initial placement is completely wrong because the bone is angled like this. Not only is it angled this way, it's also angled the other way around as well. So the tangential angle is usually always around about 90 degrees. And we also want to place that to the similar angle to the actual maxilla. So I've got the slice in view, which is over there, and we're going to move this actual angle across like that somewhere. So when I move this, I'll be able to see where this implant lies as well. So this takes a little bit of practice. Okay. Okay, we'll just leave it like that, more or less. So we're going to adjust and fine tune this one because it is way, way off. And I know from experience that that is the x-axis. So when I've got this one selected and I move the x-axis, then it should then move accordingly, and you can see how it moves. Okay.
Is it
So
best
I'm
to
moving it
always
up
use
there.
the sliders, Michael? Is it
Yeah,
easiest?
to angle it, it's always easiest to use those sliders.
Yeah.
And I may decide, okay, this implant may be, and I'm not an expert in placing implants, so I'm not telling anyone how to do this. I'm the least experienced in that. I'll just do the software for this. So if I make mistakes, please forgive me there. So I'm going to put say a smaller implant there, maybe a 3.3, I think. Hold on a second. Medentika has they've got a 3.5 and then 9 length, 11 and 13. So let us have a look. We'll put a 3.5. So here I'm going to adjust that to 3.5 and the Y as well 3.5. So that's our diameter. And then I may go for 11, but we'll have a look in the other slice. And here in this slice, wow, you can see how wrong it actually is. So we need to move this implant on the y-axis. So I'm moving it along on the y-axis like this. Now to complicate things even more, so okay, the head of it is over there. We can shift that down a little bit with the blue arrow. And then I'm scrolling through the slice and I see, okay, maybe it could be a little bit more this way. So along the x-axis, I'll shift the apex of it maybe a little bit this way. And then I can see the yellow sleeve is hitting directly into my tooth. And you can see that over here as well. So let us pull it a little bit over across something like that, so that we can sort of get into the middle, and maybe shift it a little bit along the Y. So we just double checking it all the time, and maybe down a little bit. So maybe can we open up the floor here and answer, have any suggestions?
Yeah.
That would be
Okay.
quite good.
And about the safety zones, can you set those as well, Michael?
Yeah, it's set at 2 millimeters. If you wanted to delete it, we've got in the video exactly how to delete it. You click on this, delete safety zone, and create a new one. So that's it's pretty straightforward to do that. Okay. So I think, well, the lower would be exactly the same. So we'll leave this as it is, and we'll go to the lower one. So I'll scroll through, shift on the keyboard, and then we can view the lower. So I'm on the premolar one side. I'll select the premolar, and we can then view it from this angle. So this one we can rotate a little bit along the x-axis. So this takes a little bit of practice to get this exactly correct. Of moving the wrong one. Okay. Yeah. All right.
So,
So
Michael, we had a
yeah.
question a while ago. Can you work within 3D Slicer, or is it just used as a DICOM viewer?
It's for a DICOM viewer.
So all the work happens in Blender.
Yeah.
Okay.
So okay, there's a specific reason here. I was meant to select the lower curve. This is why I wasn't getting a really good view of it because I was using the upper curve to view this. Okay, so here we should get a better angle and a better view. So move the actual angle a little bit longitudinal to the bone like that, and then we should be able to see what's going on. Okay, now over there. Okay, now we may decide, okay, this one is a little bit too long, and I'll put a 4.3. I think Medentica's got a 4.3, and maybe we'll put it 11, and then we can adjust this up or sideways by pulling these little arrows. Okay, and then I'll do the last one over here. That's this one. I'll put 4.3, 4.3, 4.3, 11, and we can then move this one. And you can see where the tooth is. We may want to decide to angle that one a little bit. So we'll angle it this way, up a bit, across a bit. All right, so we've got it at a bit of an angle. Okay, so again, I may be like a little bit out, so forgive me on that. Okay, so we are basically finished with, we're finished with 3D Slicer. So interesting enough, we can see this angle of the top premolar, how it's standing. So this is a very tricky case indeed. Okay, now we can make our guide. I will stop the slicer server link because we're finished with this, and we're going to close this menu up and open create sleeves. I just need a quick rest and then we'll continue. Are you still there, Wolf?
Yeah, yeah. So with your models, do you still work in transparent, or are you going to change those?
Yeah, no, we finished with that. That's merely to view through them.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to let's do the top one first. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to delete zones and start. Okay. And this means we can select these objects now. I'm going to hide the, no, let's do the top one first. So I'm going to hide the lower one, and we can select this one, and we can hide this one, and we can see how this, yeah.
While you're there, can you just give us a quick overview of the outliner with the different collections that you've got there, so people know where to find their implants and cylinders and things?
Okay, so I would recommend not to touch these. We've got implants, cylinders, drill bits, and sleeves. In this wax up collection, we've got all of the models. They're all there, and all the teeth are in there. So a good habit would be to actually name these things. So this one would be, for example, we can double click and put upper model, so that you actually understand where what is. And then this one would maybe be tooth 3-6, for example. So naming models and object management is critically important when we do this. Okay.
Can changing the name affect the coding?
Yes, if you do anything except for this is fine, but any name change here and it'll muck up the coding and it will not
So
work.
keep away from the implant cylinders, drill bits, and sleeves.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. All right.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. So, okay, in this scene, we are prompted to select our cylinder, our orange cylinder, and we then get to set the drill bit size. Actually, what I'll do, just for the sake of this video, I'll make this still transparent. So we select this, and we've clicked on this one, and now I think it's a 2.5 millimeter drill. I may be mistaken there. If this happens, and you see, oh, what has happened here? Go back 2 steps and click on select and set drill diameter. Okay, so things have happened there. Then go 2.5, 2.5, and then the drill length, which is the Z axis, is how long your some implant drills have fixed stoppers. So you may have a fixed length and not a movable stopper. And this is where you're going to put in your length. Now, this could be 22 or it could be 17. I'm not entirely sure how long your drills are. Assuming it's 20 mil or whatever, then put the length over here. And then we can set this to the top, sleeve to top, and that automatically puts the sleeve to the top. Now, users have asked me, how do we calculate the offset in other programs? And that's pretty simple, because the offset is the length of the implant. So the length of your 20 millimeters minus the length of your implant, which was, I think it was 11. So that minus that, and you've got your offset, which is 9. With some implant systems, they recommend taking 0.5 millimeters off to compensate for the metal insert. In that case, you would then put 19.5, and that will compensate for the metal insert. So sleeve to top, we can view the drill, which is over here, and we can also adjust this drill, and we can do the thickness or whatever. So, okay, sleeve to top, very flexible. The next step is we're going to set drill clearance. Now that puts a thin blue layer around the orange cylinder, and we need that offset so that there's not too much friction, and we've got a good fit going through this sleeve. Then we're going to apply that. Oh, I clicked the wrong one. So always work on the correct menu. Apply, trim, drill, and make a hole. And that completes our... don't worry too much about the intersection over here and over there, because the script will cut this from the model. Okay. So I think we're not going to do the lower because it's going to be a bit too long. We're going to make the upper guide. Is that okay?
Yep.
Wolfgang?
Yep.
Okay.
So with metal inserts, can you use metal inserts, guide sleeves?
Yeah, we can, but for this video, I think we'll skip that because we've got an in-depth video on how to use those. Yeah. If that's okay. All right, so for any model, we need to have a blocked out model. Forget making a guide on all of these brackets and all of that. We need a specific offset. Maybe you can just give a quick talk about the offset, Wolfgang, a bigger model.
So the offset model is used to create the inner fitting surface for the guide. So we make the model ever so slightly bigger to avoid a surface-to-surface fit. A surface-to-surface fit may not fit very well. It's a bit like a nut and a bolt. The engineer will definitely have a clearance designed in the fitting of the nut and the bolt. Otherwise, it's not going to screw in place. Same thing for anything 3D. We need to create a little offset. And that also depends on other things like your printer, or if you're milling your guide and things like that. So you go play around with the offset a little bit.
Good. So we need to make the block out model. We're going to go to the block out module, click on that, and we're going to name this upper, and then we're going to create the offset. Now, if you look very closely, we've got a transparent layer, which is a larger version of our model. This model you can offset according to your printer requirements. This is something that you have to experiment with. So we can't give 100% guidance on this one, but it gives you flexibility to, to get a good fit. Then we're going to apply this offset. And this brings us into we call it a voxel remesh mode. And this stage allows us to then remesh this at different voxel density, but we've got it set at 0.2 and finish that. And then like in the laboratory, we need to survey this model. So we're going to go survey upper, survey it. I'm looking at the mesial and distal of those two so that we can get a good slide in there. And we're going to mark these undercuts. And when this widget disappears, we can move the scene so we can actually see where these undercuts are. And then following that, we're going to create a passive model, which we need for our implant guide.
So the blockout, is that capable of making models that have a little bit of retention?
Well, yes, you can click on the auto default models, or you can carry on with a menu and block out according to your specific needs.
All right.
Okay, finish the model, which turns this, the pink one is a passive model upper, it's called. And we're going to go back to the guide module, and then with it being selected, make sure it's been selected. We've got a choice either to paint tubes, or we can paint on to make tubes, or we can paint on a layer. In this instance, I would probably say we're going to paint on a layer because we want to get as much surface retention as what we can. In the labial side, we want to avoid the brackets. We don't want them to interfere with the fit of our guide. So I'm going to call this target model. And you'll notice we've got another model underneath, which is called the offset model. I'm going to delete that. We don't need this model at this stage. Then, with it being selected, I will then click on Paint on Layer. This gives me the opportunity to now paint on my layer. And again, I want to avoid the orthodontic brackets. When we print this, we don't want any geometry or interference coming from those.
So here, can you go right over the, will the interference be taken away, Michael, from the sleeve? Because you've sort of intersected over the guide sleeve.
Yeah, so this is where the cutting tools will get rid of all of that on the inside. So ignore the sleeve at this stage. We're just painting the layer. That's all we need to do. All right, something like that. Accept this layer, and then we'll give it a quick smooth layer. That should do it. And then we're going to exit, which will then remesh the layer. And then we're going to click on Finish Layer. And then the last bit we want to do is we want to finish this. So we're going to show our cutters. While we were working, we were making these behind the scene, we were creating these cutters, which we need to make clearance for the surgical site. So I'm going to select on this specific cutter and use the S key to scale it. Something like that, to make more space for your surgery site. So yeah, something like that. And then I'm going to go clear guide and wait for it to make a hole in it. Okay, so it's cleared that area away. And then I'm going to view the cutters one more time. And this time I want to take the other one. So I'm going to hide this cutter, H to hide. I'm going to select this cutter. Now, when we're using metal sleeves, we need to change the diameter of this cutter. So this would, with the S key, you can change this diameter. Yeah. And then we're going to cut hole in guide. And then finally, we will cut the fitting surface of this guide. And if you've got an upper and a lower one, for example, you need to make sure that this in fact is called layer and this in fact is called target model, because if we've got two of we'll be left with layer 01 up top, and then we've got target model 001. So this is something you need to be aware of, because it's like A minus B. You know, if it's A.01 minus B, it's not going to work. And then we're going to go cut fitting surface. And we'll just wait for that to trim. Okay. And now when I hide this, we've got our finished guide. And if I want to view the drill bit as well, I can click on view drill bit, and there it goes. That's your drill with an offset of 0.1 going through it. Okay, hide.
Can you
All right.
export the data?
Yes. To export, we're going to go again the finishing. We're going to go view exports, and then we're going to. You need to make sure that you save it in a specific folder. So I'll save this as in my Zoom folder, Zoom. I'll just call this test and save. And then when I export the drill length, implant dimensions, we don't have a abutment angle in this case. And then when I open this, just give me a second. Zoom. Just drag this across. We've got the drill length over there. And then we've got the implant dimensions, which are over here. And then we don't have the angles, which we didn't use that in this tutorial. Okay. And I think this sort of concludes it.
Excellent. So the upper is pretty much a repetition of what you've done.
100%, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, sorry, the
Any
lower.
questions?
No.
No? This is a good opportunity to ask anything other than send us emails and so on. So if there's anything, please do so. Can you open up the microphone?
Yeah,
Wolfgang?
have, but yeah, it's all
Yeah.
available. Right. All
Good.
right. You want to stop sharing your screen, Michael? I think you've
I
done a
think
good
so.
job. It wasn't an easy case with all of those orthodontic brackets and things, and having
Yeah.
2 curves and that. So yeah, well done there.
And especially with the angle of the implant, very unexpected. You know, all of a sudden it's like, you know, you put it in the initial placement and all of a sudden it's like way, way out, you know.
Yeah. So in a scenario like that, you then just use the angled abutment, and this is where you've got that notch that comes in very handy.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Excellent.
Good
How are you,
stuff.
Stephen? You
I'm good,
good?
thank you. Are you doing okay?
Good. Yeah, different time of day on the Gold Coast. It's good. You nighttime now, isn't it?
It's nighttime now, yeah. It's okay. I don't have to run to work during the morning ones.
It's sometimes it's tricky, and you know, we can't expect users just to go into it and think, oh well, I can do this. There's quite a bit of a challenge and learning curve to this guide module, I think.
I
Yes.
agree. I think this module takes a little more practice, and once you practice, you'll get the hang of it.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, yeah. Excellent. So thank you for joining us, and yeah.
Yeah, great.
Cheers then.
We'll sign off then, and
Okay.
we'll catch up again sometime, hey?
Perfect.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Okay. Cheers, guys. Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.